All right, Jordan, we've talked immensely about this Texas matchup coming up this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on TNT, by the way. What in the
Yeah,
world?
that was one thing I wanted to
Why are
bring
we
up that
playing
we
on
didn't.
TNT? What is going on in college football that we are subleasing the first round of the college football games to TNT? What
I,
is going on with that,
I
man?
don't know.
Do better, college football. Do better. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And especially with the two brands that are going at it. I don't.
You got brands like Texas and Clemson, and you're going to put them on TNT? Really? That's what we're
And
doing?
and they're sandwiched between an NFL game too. I like just I don't. I don't. I really don't know what's going on here.
I don't understand what we're doing in college football. But at the end of the day, regardless, let's get into some of these coaching interviews. Clemson fans got a rare treat, I should say, when both Garrett Riley and Wes Goodwin were tabbed with media interviews heading into the Clemson Texas matchup this Saturday. We got to hear from both defensive coordinator Wes Goodwin and offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. And Jordan, let's start off with Wes Goodwin. He was asked about why they didn't start or why they didn't play Sammy Brown in the fourth quarter of the South Carolina game. Obviously, it's the first time the media has talked to him since that game, so they were sure to bring that up. He didn't have a great answer other than they were trying to limit Lenore Sellers and his ability to run the ball. I think it had the opposite effect of that, but again, I digress. Talked about the Texas offense, how much motion they use, the shift, the pre-snap tips that they like to try to use, all the eye candy, the complex running game that this Texas offense comes with Steve Sarkisian, and then some keys to the game as far as the ability to tackle in space and bring guys down in the open field, the athleticism of an Arch Manning, and then obviously the move of a Peter Woods inside from the edge position. They've obviously moved him inside. So, what were your thoughts on Wes Goodwin's interview and what he had to say leading up to this Clemson Texas matchup this coming Saturday?
Yeah, I think just there wasn't much to glean from it on the whole, as far as just what he said. But there were a couple of things that really that stood out to me like a sore thumb that just really kind of bothered me. I think there's a lot of Clemson fans. The reasoning for the Sammy Brown situation in the South Carolina game, I just I don't know, man. I don't understand how a coach can like outsmart himself in the way that Wes Goodwin did, supposedly, in that game, and his reasoning for doing so. His reasoning for doing so just appalled me. I just we anticipated that Lenore Sellers was going to run, so we wanted to get more speed on the field. Like the problem
instead of the leading tackler.
Yeah. What just blew my mind was that your problem is you have guys that I mean, Lenore Sellers is a really good runner, but
sure,
he is he's breaking tackles. You're not bringing him down. What is putting another DB on the field going to do if especially if a DB is having to come and make the tackle? Lenore Sellers is already in the second level anyway. What in your right mind says I need to take my leading tackler, not to mention a high school track? Okay, I don't remember Sammy Brown's actual track numbers in high school, but I know they were really good.
Sammy Brown is not a slow linebacker. He's not a guy that is physically limited. physically limited when it comes to speed. He's a very fast linebacker. He's athletic.
In
He's a
fact,
guy that can move.
in that same game, it was like the second play from scrimmage. He chased down Lenore Sellers when he broke that big run on South Carolina's first drive.
Right.
He chased him down. He outran him. Like, what in your right mind says that? Man, they're going to Lenore Sellers he's been really tough to bring down all day. So I'm going to take my best tackler off the field.
Yeah.
I usually don't get impassioned about stuff like that, but it is mind-boggling how
it's asinine. It's absolutely ridiculous for a defensive coordinator to sit up there and try to tell the fans that I took him off the field in order to limit Lenore Sellers' running ability by putting a nickel on the field. How did that eliminate Lenore Sellers' ability to run the ball?
Shelton Lewis, because Shelton Lewis played in the. We didn't even expect him to play.
Look at Lenore Sellers' stats in the freaking fourth quarter against Clemson, and tell me that his running ability was limited by the defense that you trotted out on the field for an entire quarter. Like, this is nothing new with Clemson, and this is what worries me so much about Clemson versus Texas is our inability to close a game. Our inability to step on the throat of the opposing team, our inability to just finish. You pissed away a lead versus Pitt. It took a last-second heroic run by Cade Klubnik, a 50-yard run, in order to secure that victory. And then you go on to, we'll skip over the Citadel game. You go on to the South Carolina game. You take a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter. If you take a 10-point lead into the fourth quarter, you should win that game. Instead, the offense does nothing. The defense goes into some sort of prevent, weird, crazy defense, and Lenore Sellers carves them up, ultimately resulting in South Carolina beating Clemson and us pissing away a 10-point lead heading into the fourth quarter. Fast forward to the ACC championship game, who you were gifted by Syracuse because they topped Miami. You head into the fourth quarter with a 17-point lead. And look, yes, you can blame the Clemson offense because the Clemson offense was absolutely abysmal. They did not move the ball. They did not capitalize on drives. They did not get the job done in the fourth quarter specifically. However, the offense should not have to score a single point in the fourth quarter to win a game when you're up by 17 heading into the fourth quarter. Although I think the offense should have done way more in the fourth quarter, they shouldn't have had to score a point for Clemson to win that game. But they did. They had to drive down and ultimately kick a game-winning 62-yard field goal in order to win that game. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
And it just illustrates our frustrations with this team overall and how this season has played out, because it's like, man, you had the pieces. Neither one of us thought this team was a national championship caliber football team. I don't think they're there yet. But we felt like they had a lot of talent in a lot of key spots, and they were good enough, especially with the schedule they were facing, especially to be more than what they were, especially defensively. And the fact that you have not been able to, you have not been able to get stops when you needed them, timely stops. And the fact that offensively you have not been able to sustain drives when you're in control of the football game is, and the fact that it hasn't gotten better over the course of the season is just really, really frustrating. Because there's so much about this team was what we hoped it would. Cade Klubnik's development was more than what we expected it would be. just offensive line. I think we knew it was going to be we thought it could be a pretty good line and get and develop over the course of the season. And I think they've largely done that.
Yeah.
When they're healthy. They've had injuries that have hampered that. But the receivers have shown a lot of promise. Like just so much about this team. There was a lot to be excited about, and the things that you hoped would be the pieces you'd be able to rely on, i.e., the defense. You haven't, and that's why you have 3 losses, and that's why you are the last team into the college football playoff, because you not only have you squandered talent in the places that you should have been good at, but your coaches have not been able to put those players in the best opportunities and best chance to succeed. And that's the frustrating thing. I didn't want to make this a whole rant, negative rant, because we're about to play in a playoff game. But man, it just those interviews, especially the one from West Goodwin, was just really, really, really frustrating.
And look, we're all excited as Clemson fans to just have a shot at the college football playoff. Yeah, are we the 12 seed? Yeah, were we ranked 16? Yes, did we steal a spot? Yes, all of that is true. The important thing is that Clemson's got a shot in the 12-team playoff, and we're going to see how it works out for these Clemson Tigers when it comes to this Saturday, taking on the Texas Longhorns in Austin, Texas, 4 p.m. TNT kickoff, right? But it is somewhat troubling when you hear your defensive coordinator communicate some of the things that Wes Goodwin did during his interviews this week. And look, at the end of the day, are we excited about Clemson's opportunity? Are we optimistic about Clemson's opportunities? 100%. But at the end of the day, some of those answers were unacceptable, and you got to call them out to where they were. So let's go ahead and switch the side of the ball and talk about the offensive side of the ball and talk about Garrett Riley's interview. He was interviewed this week about the offense so far this season and kind of where his mindset is heading into the playoff and his experience with TCU going into the playoff and such. But, one of the things that he was first asked about was the offense's inability to close a game, right? Taking the foot off the gas, these fourth quarter collapses that we have seen. Obviously, the heroics of Cade Klubnik to win that game against Pitt, losing a 10-point fourth quarter lead to South Carolina, almost losing a 17-point fourth quarter lead to SMU, and just not keeping the momentum through 4 quarters. This Clemson Tigers team has yet to play 4 quarters of football the entire season. Regardless of what game you want to point to, we have yet to play 4 quarters of locked-in, complete football game. Now, can we do that against the Texas Longhorns? Absolutely. And that's probably what it's going to take in order for us to move on to get a privilege to play in Atlanta again against Arizona State, right? And Clemson is absolutely capable of that. However, when you hear your offensive coordinator say, oh, we kind of took our foot off the gas and we need to be a little bit more aggressive, I hope Garrett Riley has learned his lesson from this South Carolina game and this SMU game that we squeaked by with a win. And I hope that they keep their foot on the gas. I hope if we get an early lead against Texas, however unlikely that is, I hope if that happens that we continue to press the issue for the entire 4 quarters of the game and not get comfortable and not start playing not to lose. Because if you're playing not to lose, you're going to lose.
100%, and that's ultimately just the same things that I said about West Goodwin. You're not putting your guys in the best opportunity, best chances to succeed if you are, going into a shell when you have control of the football game. And Garrett Riley basically admitting that they have not done, they did take their foot off the gas. That does not inspire confidence.
No.
And it's not what you pay him $2 million a year to be. Like this, like for everything that has improved about this team offensively from last season, you're still those types of things are not acceptable. And so you got to, whatever it takes on Saturday, you need to pull out all the stops. You need to do whatever. There should be no second guessing or playing, within yourself on Saturday, because you can't afford to. You're playing. This is what the players that you recruited to your roster. These are the types of games that they came here to play in, and not just to play in, but to win. And if you're playing not to lose, that's not what they came here to do.
Right.
So
you need to finish games. You need to keep the momentum through 4 quarters. You need to step on the throat of the opponent. And one of those big things for the offensive side of the ball, Jordan, is going to be the running back room, right? We talked about a Phil Maffa, and Dabo talked about it in his interview this week as well, is that he needs off-season surgery. Basically, Phil Maffa is not going to be any healthier until he gets surgery. So what does that say about the rest of the running back room? Well, it says that those young guys, they have to step up, starting with this Texas game. An Easy E, a Keith Adams Jr., those guys have to step up in a massive way, because Phil Maffa can no longer carry 99% of the carries for that running back room anymore. With his shoulder in the shape that it's in, the torn labrum, the fact that he needs surgery, he cannot carry the bulk of the load anymore. So a Keith Adams Jr. And an Easy E are going to have to step up, and they're going to have to be playmakers for this Clemson Tigers team. Question is, can they do it? Right? Garrett Riley was also asked about Cade Klubnik and where his game has most improved so far this season, and he talked about Cade Klubnik's ability to create off script with his legs. And I think that's been one of Cade Klubnik's biggest strengths so far this season, and something that could potentially spell some issues for this Texas defense is Cade Klubnik's ability to create off script with his legs. I think that's going to be a very important part of this team, especially with how strong and consistent this secondary has been, how much they're going to challenge our wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. They do press coverage. They like to challenge the wide receivers. But also, Jordan, I wanted to mention, how much of a wild card do you think a Tyler Brown could be coming into this Clemson game?
Yeah, I think you need to throw some wrinkles. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't. I mean, it does not have a lot of tape on him, this season. I think, whether you involve him in kind of your extension of the run game, whether it be screens or pop passes, reverses. Like I think he's a guy that could totally be a factor in that, assuming he's 100%, which I mean by this point he should be. And I think they need to have some wrinkles in there for him. I don't expect him. Obviously, I don't expect him to be like the guy. I mean, you still want to get Antonio Williams and Bryant Wesco, T.J. Moore, Jake Brennan. You want to get those guys the ball. But I think Tyler Brown, I think people just kind of forgot how good he was last season when you really needed him to be. I think giving him some opportunities and some wrinkles against a defense that will not have seen much of him on tape is probably a good idea. So I don't know how much we'll see of him, but I would not be upset to see him out there in some certain situations.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great piece. Just maybe even a change of pace piece. Maybe a guy that just kind of changes things up for the offense and adds an extra bit of eye candy, if you will, for that dominant Texas defense that this Clemson Tiger team is going to encounter this coming Saturday. It's certainly like we said with the Texas guys that we talked with over an hour. It's going to be a chess match between the offensive and defensive coordinators for Clemson and Texas, and it's going to be interesting. So a lot of this stuff remains to be seen, but it's exciting to think about a matchup between a Texas Longhorn team and a Clemson team, both having kind of very different seasons, but similar seasons at the same time when we kind of break it down and talk about the intricacies of both teams and kind of how we got to the point where we're at now, the first round of the college football playoffs in the inaugural 12-team playoff.